Can I say something?
Yes, please.
The first time I ever saw you was on BookTok.
Back when I would read for pleasure.
Back when you read for pleasure, and it inspired me to read for pleasure. So I'm kind of in that era now.
And our first ever conversation was about Seven Husbands.
And something about me, when I read a book for like 2 days afterwards, I am buzzing to talk about it. Like, I feel like I'm going to throw up. After those 2 days, I couldn't care less anymore. But
yeah, that is so interesting about you. You have this intense peak.
Yeah. And then it goes. Like, I will find a way to weave my most recent book into every conversation. And I think I recently read Seven Husbands when we met. And I didn't have any friends, let alone friends that had read it. So I was like, and it was so fun.
And then after that, you were like, you're straight. And I was like, yeah. And you were like, really?
That's when I was so confused, because we were on the same side of TikTok. Anyway, we have read a bunch of the same books, kind of coincidentally, not really on purpose.
Yeah, most of these were even before we met each other.
Yeah. So, as you guys know, we're kind of different people. We have different opinions. So, we're going to go over the books.
We're kind of different people.
No, we're kind of. In my head, though, we're also like the same.
I know. Sometimes I'll talk to someone. I'll be like, oh, we don't do that. And like, it's like those people who are in couples that are so annoying about it.
The we
people. We don't eat that. That's how I act.
Me too. But other times I'm like, no, we're so different. We like have never agreed on anything. So we're going to like briefly summarize these books and then give all of our thoughts. We haven't discussed them. We've been saving it for the pod.
I know. You tried to speak to me about it this morning and I was like, save it.
Yeah. So let's start with Seven Husbands, because that's kind of the start of our friendship.
Can I say something about reading also? Isn't it wildly fascinating that we both read the same book, but the worlds in our head probably look so different?
Yeah.
And I think that's why people get so passionate about book to movie adaptations, because they're like, no, that's not what she was wearing in my head.
And no one will ever be fully happy. Yeah. But then it's like the books that are really good, I feel like you have a more similar image in everyone's head. Yeah. Like, I don't mean to skip ahead, but Normal People's TV show was exactly what I personally saw in my head. But sorry, we'll get there.
I felt that way about Harry Potter. Like, I
never read it.
I know, that's so, again, different about us.
Yeah,
I was
different.
such a huge Potterhead growing up.
Yeah, I just watched the movie for the first time, guys.
I know, and you watched the first movie.
The first movie.
There's 8.
And it made me want a little Ron in my womb. I know. He is so cute.
You would have a little Ron.
Oh my god, I would love that boy so bad. Okay, so Seven Husbands was deeply important to me because it's a gay book.
Yeah. Spoiler.
Yeah. Will there be spoilers in this? Like, probably.
For sure.
Yeah.
I don't know if I can speak about something without spoiling it.
Me too.
Yeah.
We don't really have that in us. Yeah, it's a gay book, and that was huge for me because
Did you know it was gay going into it? Because I didn't.
You didn't?
I read it like the first year it became popular, so that was when spoilers were really not going around.
Okay. You know what sucks is there's like an edit or an audio on TikTok of someone reading aloud the very last sentence of the book.
Oh, good.
Which is an incredible sentence, and that's what made me buy the book. Because, do you know what it is, that sentence?
It's something like, I will be known as...
The interviewer's like, does it bother you that everyone only talks about the 7 husbands of Evelyn Hugo? And she's like, well, wait till they find out about my wife or
Celia,
something like that. And I was like, wait a second, that sounds...
It's a gorgeous sentence.
So good. It gives me goosies.
The entire book gives me goosies. It also cannot be overstated how much this book has impacted Gaylor.
Oh god, like derogatory
in a bad way. Like, I really think Taylor Jenkins Reid is such a brilliant thinker, writer, world builder, because the book makes you want to like go look up Evelyn Hugo. It makes you want to see her in old Hollywood, and you're like, oh, it's fake.
Yeah.
But people really took that and ran with it as like, oh, bearding exists at this level today.
Right. And I remember even in our Gaylor episode, we talked about this book, and I was like, well, but bearding is real and closeting is real. And it's like, wasn't this pre like the Stonewall riots?
Yeah.
Like, it used to be literally illegal to be gay. It is different now. Like, yeah, I'm sure that bearding and closeting, I mean, it obviously does exist on a certain level, but I don't think it's like the same. If anything, there is like queer baiting, which did not exist.
Not at all.
Back then.
I do think now it's a little bit on the other side of that. Like, it's almost cool.
In the age of Chapel Roan and all of it, it's cool to be gay.
Which is not at all saying like for the normal person. I mean more as like a celebrity or entertainment.
Totally.
Because queer people will ride for you.
Yeah.
They will spend their coin on you. They will the way young queer people support artists is unparalleled.
Agreed.
I mean it more like that, not like it's easier.
It's
being
cool
a young,
to be gay. No, yeah. I know what you mean. And I think it's really cool. I think people are fascinated by like Hollywood.
I'm so
right, because it's so. I don't know, it feels so like elite and mysterious and like kept on this like higher shelf. So this like world into this like very Marilyn Monroe-esque figure. And I also remember, do you do that thing where when you read a book you become the main character?
Not me personally, but I love that for you.
Okay, because I do. And like this one was good for me because Evelyn is so confident and like she thinks so highly. I love
self-assured.
her. I fucking love her as a person. She's obviously a very flawed character, which makes her realistic and more interesting. But like she honestly, like I saw a part of myself in her, the way that she was like, I'm gonna make it, like I'm not gonna stop, like I'm gonna do what it takes. And I was like, yes, like it makes you root for her.
And I think that is why if you read it without knowing it was a gay book, it was so powerful as like an ally to read it, because it is just a beautiful romance and you put yourself in her shoes regardless, which is what queer people have had to do with straight stories forever. So it was a nice little twist on that. The scene where she kisses the TV and chips her tooth, like I was sobbing reading it. The letter she writes,
oh my god,
of like, I miss you. Like I did have to text an ex when I read that because like it was so powerful.
Oh my god, me fucking too. Isn't that horrible what a book will do to you? Like,
and this author is brilliant. I've read everything she's ever written. Like
really?
Malibu Rising is so good.
I have that. I was gonna read it.
She's like she pulls you into the world.
And isn't that also about like famous people? I love famous people.
They're all kind of interconnected. Like she will have people from one book.
There's like a nepo baby of like one of these. Yeah, I heard about that.
She has a world built for her. I'm surprised they haven't all become movies.
I know. I think it's in the works. Okay, but they've been saying that forever. Guys, I just want you all to know that I am petitioning to be Celia St. James. I know I don't look like her right now, but like I could be Celia St. James.
You really could. I think you could do it right now.
I really could be glam, like I swear to God. So look out for that. I'm being that's my dream role. If I could play any role.
Even before I met you, I knew that.
Because she's gay. Yeah. And she has red hair.
It's perfect.
She's me.
And I think a lot of people in your TikTok comments agree.
They do. So that's really cool. And that was fun for me too to read. I was like,
You're so Celia St. James.
I love Celia St. James. She's so cool. It was so fun I also love that Evelyn is bi. And it wasn't like, oh, these were all beards and then I fell in love with a woman. It was so like, she was falling in love with everybody, all kinds of people. Cuban
American. I really feel like that was a cool twist to it too. Yeah,
it was so true. And the way she had to like dye her hair blonde and like do all these things to like fit into Hollywood and the beauty standard, and the way she utilized her sexuality to make it resonated with me as well, because I feel like I kind of did that growing up in certain ways, and it almost made me feel less shameful about it. Because the way she went about it was like quote unquote empowering, which will actually lead perfectly into
I was just thinking that. Next, such a good segue.
Next book.
She also is so wronged by men at every turn of her life, which I felt was very realistic.
Other than Harry.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
I love Harry. Yeah, she was so wronged by men. And I loved the way that like when she did that, her first nude scene, she like convinced them to stop it right before you could see it. She was such a businesswoman.
She's so smart. She's so you. That's why you saw yourself.
That's why I felt so inspired after I read that book. I was like, yeah, it was really good. It's kind of have like no critiques.
I kind of want to reread it now because I read it like 4 years ago maybe.
And it was like the kind of book where I would wake up the next morning and be like, I need to figure out what happens next. Like I couldn't put it down.
I do tell everyone, if you are in a reading slump or a rut of any kind, read this book. It'll get you right out.
It really will. I love books like that. Yeah. I think one of my favorite scenes of all time in that book is, spoiler alert, kind of, when Celia and Evelyn and Harry and whoever Celia's like football player husband was, they all are just like living that perfect little life where they're like neighbors and they have the baby and they go to the picnic and just like I just saw it in my head and it was so beautiful.
Yeah, it does make you think about how many love stories we haven't heard, or how many people haven't gotten to have like a traditional family because they were alive before it was,
I know, isn't that heartbreaking?
Legal and normal. Yeah.
Even like the part where there was a protest and they were like, we shouldn't go because it'll make it about us.
Yeah.
And that was just like an interesting, I don't know. What a good book. Incredible book.
Do you ever think about like if you've had ancestors who were queer and just didn't have the tools to know, or they knew and had to live a closeted life?
I actually have never thought about that once. That's so interesting.
I think about that often. I'm
really?
like, there probably, even not even just being queer, but like there were probably so many women in my ancestry who couldn't live the life they wanted to live. Probably like, all of them. Like,
yeah.
Probably every single
one. Yeah, that's so true. There have to have been queer people in both of our like lineages, right? I did make my mom read this book. This was like recently after I came out. I think I read this book, which was really nice. Representation like really does like help people.
Yeah,
and it's really nice to like see women falling in love in media, because I feel like you don't. I mean, now it's becoming more common, but before it used to be like more like this sexual relationship between women on screen, and now it's like this was so like real love, like the letters and the chipped tooth of it all. It was so sweet, and I was like, if my mom reads this, she's gonna get it. Like, how could you not get this?
Yeah.
And she kind of did. Like, you can't not. I don't think anyone could read this and not be hooked
and not be rooting for them as a couple.
Yeah, so my mom was like, oh, I don't know exactly if she was like putting it together in her head about me, but regardless, I think that planted some kind of seed.
Yeah, I think it's really lovely when queer media isn't queer media, but it's pop mainstream media, and it happens to have a queer storyline. I think that is when it becomes really powerful. Not to say that there shouldn't also be like queer media for queer people, but I love when it's so mainstream, like 2 million copies sold, people everywhere, all walks of life are reading it.
Such a good book.
Amazing.
I'm so glad this book exists. I can't wait to be in the movie.
I know, I can't wait for you to be in the movie. Do you think they'll have like a green carpet instead of a red carpet?
I hope so.
Yeah.
Oh my god, what a good Halloween costume too.
Yes.
Why does no one do that?
I hope you have a girlfriend you can do that with. Like, you could be Celia and she could be Evelyn.
Because Evelyn's kind of more recognizable, but then if I was with Evelyn, you'd be like, oh, she's Celia.
Yeah.
You know?
Exactly.
Obviously. Anything else on that? Or should we make our segue?
Let's make our segue.
Because speaking of using your sexuality to your advantage, another book we both read was My Body
by Emrata. And what are your thoughts? I will say I went into it a little bit biased against her, which is not fair. And it wasn't like in a misogynistic, like, oh, beautiful girls can't write way. That wasn't it at all. Yeah. I did kind of go in thinking, you know, she was the voice for choice feminism for a dozen years, and then that stopped being as fruitful, and then the end thing was sort of to be like, oh, I've broken free of this, and I'm actually realizing how harmful it is to objectify yourself. And she kind of did what the culture wanted of her. And I think that was also around the time of like intellectualism, like oh, hot girls can read, and like hot girls can write, and I can be beautiful and smart. And for me growing up, again, this is, I think we grew up very differently, but for me growing up, I was like, yeah, girls can be beautiful and smart. Like duh. True. It was just so like obvious to me, I think, when it came out. And that was her whole thing. Like, she would go on podcasts and be like, yeah, I have big boobs and I'm well read. And I was like, yeah, okay. I never doubted that. And the people who do doubt that are probably men who hate women so much that they're beyond the point of saving. So I was like, I don't know if I'm really the person you to be convincing of this. And I know there is someone who needs convincing. It's just I'm so removed from them. And I think they're going to objectify you regardless.
I think it's so nuanced, because I do think there was a wave of feminism that she was kind of at the head at, or like really like in her prime of that time. It was like, I can be hot and read or whatever. And then when that evolved, kind of like around the time this book came out, even though she acted like she evolved with it, her actions said otherwise. Does that make sense?
Completely.
She like never stopped like posting nudes online, which like that's where it's nuanced, because like, yeah, post nudes online, who cares? But I don't know, because sometimes like when you're posting a photo of your 6-pack a month after you had a baby,
with the baby in the back, just to be like, guys, don't
forget that I made life and now I'm skinnier than you. Like, I don't know that that's doing much for women. Do you know what I mean? I don't know if that's a problematic take.
I don't think it is. And I am the first one to say, like, the influencers online are not responsible for your insecurities.
Yeah.
Right?
Agreed.
Period. Like, it's not fair to
blame them.
But I do think it is a really fair critique to be like, girl, you know you are the body type.
Yeah. And to like go on fucking Jimmy Fallon and be like, I don't know, I just like had a bowl of pasta before this, it's just my genetics. There's no fucking way. So like those things, even if that is true for you,
and even if you did bounce right back 3 hours after giving birth, you know how hard it is for postpartum women
how other
everywhere.
People feel.
And you know exactly the reaction you're going to get posting that. Why do it? Because to me, feminism is about to be lifting the greater good, not just you as a woman can do no wrong.
Agreed. I so agree.
So I guess that's not even about the book, because I do think she makes really great points in the book about owning your image.
That was huge. The whole...
I loved that essay. I think it was also in the New York Times before the book.
Yeah.
And I think I also think people critiquing her book, when they critique it as like a philosophical novel or something like that, I'm like, that's not fair, because I don't think that's what she set out to write. She did set out to write a memoir. So when people are like, it's so white feminism-y, yeah, she's a white woman.
Yeah.
Like, unfortunately, her lived experience is as a rich, incredibly privileged, incredibly sexy white woman.
Yeah.
So as a memoir, that's what it's going to be about.
Right.
People are like, she didn't talk about like,
women of
racism.
color.
And it's like, yeah.
What is she going to say?
You know?
Yeah. Yeah.
So I do think some of the critiques are a little extreme about her. But at the same time, I will say, I read this book and I was like, girl, you've lived a very different life than me.
Yeah.
I think you have a lot to say about owning your image. And I think if young girls want to get into modeling,
that's the thing.
this is a great read for them to be like, oh, here are the dangers of it.
Yeah. I
think for a lot of girls like me, or maybe the more common folk, it's sort of like, okay,
this is not relatable at all. But good for you, I guess. That is what's weird, is it was relatable for me in a lot of ways.
That's why I think it's so different, both our takeaways from it.
I actually felt very seen by it in a lot. And it was very like, I like books, and I don't think she did this to the... I keep like segueing on accident, but like, I love books that are so genuinely like your ugliest thoughts. And it's like, oh, you were so brave to put that on paper. Like, I'm a fan. Is like, you couldn't have fucking paid me enough money to put that out if it was like my actual like diary, which is I think how it's written to feel. So like, there were some ugly thoughts. Like, I remember one scene where she's like at a stoplight in a car, and I think like some guy's like objectifying her, or like honking or hollering at her, and she like kind of feels validated. And I'm like, I get that. Like, I do. Like, sometimes like I'm catcalled and I'm like, oh, thank God I look pretty today, which is fucked up, and you're not supposed to say that out loud. But I think like as a model, you're kind of conditioned to take any any attention as like a compliment, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I think there were a lot of little moments like that where she conveyed an ugly thought. Like, I remember there's this one part where her husband at the time says like, there's so many beautiful women in the world, and she starts crying, and she's like, I don't know why that hurt me so much. I think those little moments are very vulnerable. Again, you couldn't pay me to put it on paper, but
that I think I would say, because I get that, like the fact that she looks the way she does, bless you, Theo,
bless you,
and she's still so insecure. That's what was so relatable to me. And also like that horrible, is it the one in the New York Times as well, where like she goes to the photographer's house and he like takes advantage of her, and those are the photos that end up like being sold in a book without her consent, because she accidentally like signed her rights away. That I understood. I was like, girl, I've been there.
I thought that stuff in the book was so well written, and she is the correct person to tell those stories.
She is a good writer ultimately.
Yeah, she has a very strong voice.
She does. Yeah, I really did love that. I loved, and like the symbolism of like having that giant poster of herself that she had to like buy to hang in her house. Like, that is what it feels like to be a model. It's so specific. Like, not everyone could tell that story.
Yeah. And I loved when she talked about how like she posted a picture of herself that a photographer took, and then she got sued.
Yes. Yeah.
Like, stuff like that I think is only she could tell stories like that, and I think she did a phenomenal job of it. I think her larger feminist ethos I don't really align with.
I agree.
And it didn't change my life. The book did not change my life. I've read books that I felt were a very strong feminist perspective, like The Beauty Myth, or I do think she is the center of her universe.
I didn't finish it and feel like, wow, I feel so good about myself now.
No,
like The Substance or anything like that.
It was a book about her, which is fine because it's a memoir, but it was very self-aggrandizing. She talks about like rich people all the time. I'm like, girl, you're one of them.
Yeah. Well, and the last thing I'll say, I feel like a lot of my critiques are about her as a person. No offense, like, I don't know, I don't mean to be a hater, I'm just being honest, but like when I went through, we should make an episode about my, well, I guess we talked about it, just like my whole journey of going from like being very an object for men, and I kind of just capitalized on that to get to where I am in a lot of ways, but also I was a child, and there's just like, that's a nuanced situation. But I kind of saw her as a role model during that time, which I think is a little problematic, if I'm honest, because I was like, well, Emrata can show her tits online and people respect her, so why can't I? And I think that that's true, and you should be able to do that. But I don't know. I don't think it's a fun life to have thousands of men objectifying you every day.
Yeah.
And then constantly inserting that you're still smart. I don't think that that's like a life that I personally want to live. Yeah. Does that make sense?
I do wish she had come out with a stronger perspective on that, or a stronger like persuasion against building a career off
your
of
sexuality. Yeah.
And I think I've read a lot more, listened to a lot more people who have like really profound takes on objectification, and they just don't get heard because they don't have a body like her.
Yeah. That's so true.
And I know like we as a people are obsessed with the hottest, most successful person ever being like, guys, I made it to the top and it's not glorious from here. Yeah. But it is, reading it, I was just like, okay, I guess you're doing the exact same thing you did pre-book, but now you have ownership over your image, which is amazing.
Which is great.
But how much have we really
It's changed? Kind of like Sydney Sweeney reminds me of her in the sense where it's like, guys, but I fix cars. And it's like, oh my God. It's like, why are we I don't know. I hope that what I'm saying is making sense at all. And I feel entitled to saying these things because I too do those things and have been there and utilize my sexuality to get what I want, and I regret it in a lot of ways, and that's why I'm like, I don't know if this is the message we should be sending, because personally I wish someone had said to me, hey, you don't need to do that to get to where you want to go. You know, I hope that this is making sense.
It totally is. I think I realized at like age 13, oh, you can be sexy and smart.
Yeah.
And so for reading an entire book was like, guys, I can be sexy and smart. I was like, oh cool, yeah,
I knew that. Yeah.
And it almost feels like you're convincing yourself of it.
Yeah. I felt like I was trying to convince the men that followed me of that. It's not like I didn't know that, but I was like, oh, she's telling men that that's true. I don't think they care.
And the thing is, and men won't respect you more.
Like, no, they just simply don't.
Let's say the really brutal thing is I don't think men are following her on Instagram because
for her essays.
Yeah.
That's the thing.
And I think maybe the guilt of that ate her up and made her feel like she had something to prove.
That's how I felt. That's exactly how I felt. And I went about proving it so differently is the thing.
And it does chip away at your confidence so much. Like when I first met you and for a long time, you felt like you had nothing to say and people only wanted to look at you. And the psychological damage that does to a person is profound. Horrible. I wish she kind of came out and said that.
Especially as you get older, as you gain weight. Like, that's when you start to actually lose your fucking mind, because it's like, oh my God, everything that I have is crumbling before me. And like, it's a horrible feeling. Yeah. And it's really sad. I don't know.
And this is full transparency. I had to mute her because I couldn't take comparing my body to her. And again, that's not saying anything bad about her. She's a beautiful, gorgeous woman, but I know she brings up insecurities in me, so this is probably all biased and colored from my perspective.
One of my favorite things about you is like, you'll block someone if they make you feel bad.
She doesn't know me. She doesn't care. Like all of this, she doesn't care. She is a multimillionaire living a beautiful life.
She's fine.
She looks the same as she did at 21.
Yeah, she's fine. I hope that these weren't like super problematic takes of mine and that I made sense. Sometimes I talk and then I get anxious.
No, I think that
people know what I
mean,
fine. Right?
I think you are one of the most well qualified people to speak about this book.
Well, that's why I'm kind of like, oh, I have something better to say, but it's not coming out right. But maybe another episode that's like one of those things that like I could cry right now. Like I feel emotional and then my brain shuts down. So maybe we should move on, and maybe another episode I'll have better thoughts. I don't know why that makes me sorry. I need to stop crying in these fucking podcasts.
No, it's okay.
It's my trauma. That was my trauma. And like, oh no, you were a hot girl on the internet. I know. I get it. Trust me, I get it. But
no, I think that's the thing. It's completely valid to have those feelings.
Like it, yeah. It's also the I was so underage of it all.
Yeah.
You know?
And you are making sense of it in your own way and justifying it in your own way and clinging on to anyone who...
That's what it was. Yeah. Yeah. And I just hope other girls... I wish there was another voice of this path, but ended differently. No offense. You know?
I really love, like, Mia Khalifa talks a lot about
That's
how
true.
if she had kids, she would be like, don't go into sex work. It is really, really, really tough and traumatizing. And she sheds this, I think, important light on it.
That's true. She is such a...
It's not glamorous. I think it was important. I think the way Mia Khalifa came out and said, I didn't have control over my image. It wasn't glamorous. I have regrets about the things I did. I think that is pretty powerful stuff.
And it's fucking cool how she turned it around and is now, like, probably most of her audience is women now. That's fucking cool to me.
Yeah.
I don't know. I'm not here to judge, like, who did things right or wrong.
No,
but, like, that's the kind of thing that I would have liked to have looked up to when I was younger.
I think even you.
I hope so. I feel like I'm not as vocal about it because I'm shameful, but one day in my 50s when I write my memoir, it'll be great.
I think you have such a stellar take on it, which is I wish I had more information going in younger, and I hope to pass on that information that I do have. And
that you can get out of it.
Yeah.
You don't have to keep that image forever.
No, you really don't.
Like, you can shift.
And sometimes it's freeing to leave.
It's so freeing.
And be valued for things other than the way you look.
Yeah.
And the, like, connection and joy you can feel that way.
Yeah. Okay, thank you for saying it for me in such an eloquent way.
No,
because I couldn't get it out.
You said it in a
perfectly.
beautiful way.
Okay, thank you. We'll move on. I know that was just so long.
No, that was really good.
Thanks.
I love you.
What was our next one we were going to talk about?
Should we do I'm a fan? Because you also, like, segued us
I keep
into that
doing that on accident.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah. Because, like, I finished I'm a Fan last night. Transparently, I'll say that. Crazy read. Like, it is such a well-written book. I've never read anything like it.
I also think if you are super online right now but you want to start reading something, this is a good way to start because it's a quick read. It kind of feels almost like scrolling through TikTok
in a way,
in a book.
Yeah, it is so relatable. It has to be based on a real experience.
I'm sure this is her
diary,
something she went through.
If it's too real. It's so real. It's like basically we are not summarizing these books for anyone, actually, just realized. Quick little summary is it's about this woman who is cheating on her boyfriend with this man who has some level of, like, fame and success.
Yeah.
And he has a wife, but is cheating on his wife with 2 women. So she's one of 2. And the other woman is also, she's an influencer.
So her entire life is online. She has the blue check.
She's a Nepo baby. So she's, like, very rich, and, like, her whole Instagram is like, oh, homemade food grown from my garden and my $1 million chair that no one's ever sat on. And it's just that feeling of, like, comparison.
Yeah, it almost feels like, she wants this guy. Also, the 2 people are called Man Who I Want to Be With and
Woman Who I'm Obsessed With.
Which I
love.
So real. Like,
and
they
that's
don't
where
have names.
That's where it feels like this is a real retelling. Like,
yeah.
I'm like, this is her diary. I feel like I read someone's diary.
It's not even just first person, it's deep first person.
Yeah, and some of it's like, I've never read a book like this. It is... The grammar and punctuation is, like, not always right. Some of the chapters are capitalized. Some of them are not. Sometimes she says, like, FR. Like, she just, like...
It's a diary.
It's a literal diary. And it's so, like, stream of consciousness.
Yes. That's exactly what I wrote. It feels like deep diary, rapid fire, first person... talking to your friend about the things you felt that you feel like no one else has felt,
or some things you wouldn't even say to your friend. Like, this, there is some crazy shit in this book. Like, it's so, she explores the themes of, like, class and race really, really well
in a very accessible way. I remember there's this one sentence where she says, like, the man who I want to be with is obsessed with having me next to him or, like, on his arm. Dude, that quote is so good.
You know what's fucking crazy?
And I felt that way before, where I know a guy likes how I make him look in public.
Yes. Okay, wait. The one thing about this book, so it's very, like, it's very a quick read. Like, some of the chapters are really, really short. They're all, like, scattered and all over the place. I remember when we also first became friends and I started reading this book and you were reading it, or you had just finished and we didn't know, and I sent you a picture, remember? Because I was like, this is so us. But last night as I was reading, like, when you read this book, you have this urge to write things down or take pictures or tell people, because you're like, how did she say that? And last night I took a couple of pictures of pages I was like, I need to tell people.
Okay.
Literally the first one I took a picture of, It takes me a long time to realize that the man I want to be with tells me he likes being seen with me in public because what he means is he enjoys what my skin color says about him to other people.
Yes. Oh my God. I read that 2 years ago and I
still remember. It stuck with you. And that's the whole chapter. That one line. Isn't that fucking insane?
There's so many little things about class and power and obsession and how she almost becomes more obsessed with the woman she's obsessed with than the man she wants to be with.
And it's funny because at certain points when he's disrespecting this woman, she's like defensive of her.
Yeah.
She's like, wait, no, she's mine to bully in my head. You can't be mean to her.
And even the way she bullies this woman in her head, you can tell it's just jealousy.
Yeah. And we do this all the time. We're like, we're not perfect, guys. We fucking hate people sometimes. Like, hate. Like, we hate on certain. Honestly, can I say something? Sometimes warranted. There are some influencers who we fucking hate. I wish I could out them so bad.
But we know things about them that the public doesn't. Which is, I think, why it's so warranted.
It feels like almost like I'm like justified to hate them. But then sometimes we'll turn around and be like, and you know what? We're a fan. Because why do I know everything she's ever done?
We're a fan, and dare I say, sometimes I'm jealous.
Yeah, of course. A lot of it is rooted in jealousy of one thing or another.
Yeah.
That's why I love the name I'm a fan.
I know.
Because you know when you hate someone so much and then you have that realization like, wait, I know what she's had for breakfast every day this week.
And the cover is gorgeous.
It's
all
so
of the covers are so cool.
I love the chapter names. They're so fucking goofy.
It's a good like coffee table book.
And
I think even with the Reddit snark pages of it all, it is most of the people who are heavily snarking on someone, you're a fan of them.
Absolutely.
No one else is noticing the things you're noticing.
You're almost like a bigger fan than like their normal fans who can just like go on with their day. They're like taking up that much space in your mind. Can I share a few other sentences I saved? Just because like she says things where it's like, damn, I never would have said that out loud, but you're so right. She says, what he really means when he says he can't be with me is that he wants to be with me. He's just scared. So I need to fight for us, for the both of us. True.
Things that, I was going to say things that you have said that I'm like, oh, you're delusional.
Yeah.
She is saying
it made me feel seen. If you're in a situationship or some kind of like limerence vibe, go read this book. I swear to God, she literally is paying psychics. The psychics are like, he's a bad vibe, get away. And she's like, and that's how I knew she was a scam, because we're meant to be. Me.
We are all us engaged in a collective self-harm by trying to love him, seeking to be loved by him.
Wow. Oh. Can I read two more? These are so good. Like, they're so good. This is a little bit longer, but like, I understand this feeling was put into words so well. The chapter is called Gimme. She says, I want power and connections and money and status and access and influence. I want to turn down invitations to events so elite they are called cultural moments. You just had to be there. I want to be ambivalent. I want brands to send me their limited edition drops with a pleading note to please wear the swag. I want to write a caption with an embarrassing blend of personal anecdote and brand name dropping with #ad. I want verified celebrities to write overfamiliar comments under my casual Tuesday night lobster rolls. I want to be flown in for talks at big events. I want the press to flatter me and seek my opinion on shit that bears no relevance with me. I want collaborations with galleries and labels. I want my presence to add charismatic allure to their events, and they know this and they want it. It goes on and on and on.
Madeline, you're such a good reader.
Thank you. like out loud.
So, yeah. Sometimes I forget that like
I can read.
Yesterday you did text me, I can't read right now.
Yeah. And you're like, that's good for the book pod we're doing.
Good, perfect episode tomorrow. No, the way you can bring it to life.
Oh my God, thank you.
That's I guess
so
even
sweet.
with the Pretty Bird poem, that's what you did, but you bring it to life. I don't read it like that.
Really?
I read
Guys,
it in a
wait till
dulled
you
down
see
way.
me as Celia.
Because you're an actress. You could be a great voice actress too.
Thank you.
For an animated movie, or you could read audiobooks.
You're being so nice. You're doing to me what she just said that she wants people to do to her.
Yeah.
Isn't that such a true feeling when you're scrolling?
Everyone's had it. Or
I fucking love it.
I have at least.
I love it. I love it so much. Like,
I love that she's an Indian woman.
Yes.
Because I think there were so many things that she said that I've felt about dating people and how I know they perceive me.
Yeah. And I'm sure even like, obviously, it was interesting for me to read as a white person because obviously like I haven't had these thoughts before, but I imagine seeing like this white influencer who's talking about like the land and like Mother Nature and all these things and being like, you are literally a colonizer.
No, it feels crazy seeing people like teach yoga on Instagram.
Yeah.
And be like, namaste.
And all their white followers are like, wow.
Yeah.
Yeah. It was fascinating.
Oh, I love
She does it like the concept of race and influence. And like effortlessness.
Yes, because you do this all the time where you'll be scrolling and you'll be like, isn't this girl so effortless? And I'm like, that is the most effortful, curated feed I've ever seen. And the crazy thing is you're in the industry. Like, you know how much effort is required. But the second you're on the other side of the screen, laying in bed, scrolling, it feels like everyone in the world is living a more glamorous life and knowing what they're meant to do. And she captures that feeling so well, of feeling just small and insignificant and stupid and ugly and unworthy.
And like everyone knows something you don't somehow. Like I remember this part stuck with me. It's such a little part, but she was like, how come when she wears a baggy t-shirt, it looks chic, and when I wear a baggy t-shirt, I look like
yeah, I look
like
horrible.
A slob.
Yeah,
it's like, and I was like, that's so true. I've totally felt that way. Or she's like, everyone keeps complimenting her taste. How do you have good taste? What do I have to do to have good taste? And it's like, she's a millionaire nepo baby, you know, and just like, it's like so unfair. You're being complimented on this thing that you bought, like the consumerism of it all. And then it's like under this guise of like, I love the earth. And like, even it's so cool. This is such a recent book, because then she goes into like the Black Lives Matter movement and how that influencer then reacts to that, and how she starts posting black artists but like has never paid one, and like all of these things. It was so interesting.
I think a lot about how it must be so difficult to write a book that is so online and such a sign of the times. Like I'm sure she was nervous, or her publishers were nervous when she wrote it, being like, this is gonna feel so 2023 forever. Yeah, it's never gonna age well. And I think she embraced that. Yeah. She's like, I don't want it to age well. I want it to be my diary of this moment in time. And it
so is.
It really is. And there's this part where she says, like, normalize saying something for a white person. Yes. And I thought that was so, like, no one's ever said it like that, but I remember growing up, people would always tell me, like, you're good looking for an Indian person. It was always a qualification, and I'm sure that's happened to her. And I wanted to ask your thoughts. This is the thing you started talking to me about in the car this morning, and I was like, save it. But how do you feel about plotless books? Oh, good. Because the book doesn't have
Thanks
a plot.
For asking.
Which is, dare I say, a perfect segue into normal people.
Yeah, guys, sorry. Like, as you can tell, I hope, like, I love this book.
I loved it.
Conceptually, couldn't pay me to read it again.
Oh, yeah.
Only because, like, I have a horrible attention span, so for me to read a book, I need to want to know what's happening next. And can't stress enough how, like, almost nothing happens in this book.
You're just in her brain.
She's just yearning and yearning and yearning and yearning, and the end. Just like normal people. Like, literally. And it's so good. And sometimes, like, last night I read a lot at once because I wanted to finish it for this pod. And
this book is not a read a lot at once
book. Like, little nuggets. Because they're so good. But when you keep reading, it starts to feel like word salad. Because you're like,
and you start to feel crazy.
Yeah. Because I'm like, wait, what is going on? Like, you know what's happening, but I can't read a plotless book.
Can I tell you something? Reading it makes you feel like, okay, she is deep in yearning in her real life, and this is cathartic for her to get out on paper.
It feels like a diary.
Yeah. And it was almost like, girl, I shouldn't be reading this.
That's how I felt too. I was like, oh my God, you published this.
Yeah. I loved it. And
how do you feel about plotless books?
I can't stand them.
Yeah.
Can't stand them.
It's so hard.
It is so
I don't think I've ever read a plotless book that I got through really quickly. Does that make sense? Like, I
have to be stranded on a plane to do it.
Yeah,
I would even rather read nonfiction, because then I'm at least learning something. Right. Plotless fiction is like, oh, there's a gun to my head.
That's kind of how it feels. Like, sorry, people love plotless books. I personally don't.
I don't either. I loved this book. I think I read it in really small chunks.
It's meant to be read like that, I think.
Which was way better. I almost treated it as like a coffee table reading on the train book.
It's kind of like almost like a book of poetry in a way.
Yes, it's prose. It really is like
every chapter could be a standalone thing.
It's not a novel.
Can I read one last thing? I don't know why. Last night when I was reading, I was like, I have to tell the kissers this. I thought they were so good. Perfect. This chapter is called Dream. This is the whole thing. I daydream constantly about him. I want the man I want to be with to change. I send him podcasts, quotes, screenshots, videos, nudging him in the direction I want him to go in. I fantasize and fall in love with a version of him I'm not sure exists outside of my imagination. He is constantly failing in comparison to this person I know he could be. If he could only stop being exactly who he is, we could be happy.
That is what a situationship is.
Like, guys, read the book if you're like in a situationship. Yeah. That's the whole chapter.
It kind of makes you feel like, wow, she's so delusional, and then you have to do a little self-reflection. You're like, oh, I felt that though. Exactly. So am I the problem? That's kind of what the book does.
It calls you out so hard. Yeah. There's also like she does things where she is like grappling with like, I'm such a bad person, and if I do this thing, then maybe people will think I'm a good person. Like, I feel like everyone, maybe not everyone, has that little voice in their head that's like, I'm a bad person, I'm an imposter, everyone's gonna like catch me. And she
I fear some people
really
don't
well.
have that feeling enough.
I think they're narcissists, those people.
You have it too
a
much.
Lot. It's really loud, but I love that about her.
Once I looked over at Madeline's phone, her recent Google search was how to know if I'm a bad person.
Oh, that's when I was dating someone fucking evil who told me I was a bad person every day. So
it's
see,
so
when
good.
I talk about the book, I'm like passionate. I love it.
It's because you read it yesterday.
That's true.
If this was 2 weeks later, you'd be like,
but also I mean like the plotlessness of it all, I'm like, I can't do that ever again. But it's really good. I would recommend reading it.
I think you either are gonna love it or hate it. I do think it's a very polarizing book. I can imagine if you're someone who if you don't like when a friend is in a situationship because you just want to shake them and be like, shut the fuck up, this is not the book for you.
Or if you aren't very self-aware, I think this book really calls a lot of things out. And if you don't want to like face that, I think that you would blame the book. You know, we haven't been rating these, so I'm gonna go back retrospectively.
Oh yes, please do.
7 Husbands,
5 stars.
My Body, 3.
That was a 3 for me as well.
This one,
it might have. I love a female memoir, one of my favorite genres ever. I've read a lot. I think I might have even given it a 2.5. I loved the one essay so much. That essay is a 5-star essay.
What saved it? Yeah. This one I would give like a 4 or a 4.5.
I would give it a 4.5. Oh, we're so aligned
we're the
today.
Same. Wait.
Yeah.
Loving.
Okay.
Speaking of no plot, normal people.
Should we do? Yeah, let's do normal people next. Can I be so honest and transparent?
So
haven't finished the book.
I don't blame you. I can't believe I did. I'm
Forget
shocked.
Finished. I've read 25% of it. Can I tell you my lore with the book?
Yeah.
It was the pandemic. I had just come out of a year-long situationship with a man who is my best friend. I start reading the book. I think, why am I reading this? This is happening to me in real life.
Yes, that was my thought too.
And I just read Conversations with Friends. Same author. I really liked that book.
I want to read that one day.
And in that book, I didn't mind that she doesn't use quotations around quotes.
That really bothered me in the beginning.
This book, I just couldn't. First of all, it kind of makes you want to yell at the girl, stand up, in a different way than I'm a fan.
Yeah. For some reason, yeah.
Because in I'm a fan, you can tell it's just like messy. They're both cheating. I don't know.
Yeah,
it was
I don't
different.
know what it is. It is different though.
I think because I saw more of myself in normal people.
Yeah.
Where she's just...
Well, normal people, this one is, I'm a fan is almost like he's treating her so much like shit that almost I don't feel bad for her because she knows.
Yeah.
This, like, he gives and takes away and gives and takes away so much that I'm also like, fuck you, Connell. I actually can't stand Connell. I don't get people that are like...
oh my God. I had to stop reading it because I was getting so upset thinking about everyone being like, oh, aren't they such a sweet couple? No, they're not.
No. Like, you guys are crazy.
I've read maybe 30 pages of this, and for my own...
really?
Okay, more. Maybe like 90 pages of it.
Okay.
But
I can't believe I finished it. That's crazy for
my
me.
mental health, had to put it down.
No, I don't blame you. It is literally... That's what I was saying the other day, too. It's like... Because I also watched the show. I don't know why so many people were like, it's my comfort show. It's like the best show I've ever seen. So I don't get like the Paul Mescal lore, and I really wanted to. So I was like, maybe if I watch this, I'll get it. Their chemistry was insane, I will say.
Yeah, I can't believe they're not in love in real life. I think they are.
There's a lot of... I'm like on that side, the Phoebe Bridgers of it all on TikTok. So I got that, but like, I was like, why would I watch this? I just lived that. Why would I watch it? Seriously.
We all lived it. So
no, it's so not fun. Poor Marianne, that poor fucking girl. It is so sad, and there's no happy ending.
Yeah.
Like, what a miserable time.
I don't get how it's people's comfort show. Is the show different than the book?
It is the best adaptation of book to screen I've ever seen. It is exactly what I saw in my head to a T. Everything. Yeah. It was actually like, that was kind of satisfying because I was like, whoa, like I've seen this before in my head.
If you do want a love story, watch One Day. Also
Everyone's
tragic
been
ending.
Talking about that lately.
Another tragic ending, but so good.
Like more worth it.
In a way, it'll destroy you more as well because the ending can't stress enough. Tragic.
Good. I'm gonna watch that. Everyone's been saying that lately.
Even from a cinematography, direction, writing perspective, it's totally worth it.
Did you binge it really quickly?
I binged it with my parents. We were all like sobbing.
Aww.
It's a really good...
all right.
You want to know the premise of it?
Yeah.
It's a situationship, and each episode is the same day in a different year. So it's over the course of several
God,
years.
I love people's brains. It's brilliant.
Brill.
That's so brill.
Yeah.
Wow. I love that.
Can't stress enough. Tragic ending.
Yeah.
So brace yourself.
Yeah. Okay. If you guys want some, wait, we have so much media content.
I know.
Like we could really talk about that.
I could make a pod episode about that.
About
show.
one day? Okay. Maybe we do that. We didn't give a plot to this because, like, I'm pretty sure you guys you get it.
It's a situation.
It's everywhere. It's a situationship. Yeah, I would give this, like, I guess a 4 stars.
He ignores her in public and they're hooking up in private.
But then, like, when they go to college, she's the cool one and he's a loser. But
I don't even think I got there yet.
She still is, like, all over him and he still treats her like shit.
Oh, good.
Yeah. And then they both are dating people, but then they're like each other's person forever and ever, but they never end up together. The end. And, like, everyone's, like, beating the shit out of Marianne and she, like, has such, like, fucking like low self-esteem that during sex she starts to have men be like, you're an ugly slut, I fucking hate you, and like hit her.
No, I actually, oh my God,
it's horrible. And then when she goes back to Connell and she's like, wait, can you like tell me you hate me and like hit me, he's like, I can't. And then she's like, wow, and you're calling me weird, and she starts crying and she leaves. It's just like a mess. Like I'm like, you guys don't know how to communicate, you're freaking me out. It's so hard to watch.
Oh my God, I'm so glad I didn't finish it. I actually
you would have hated it.
I would have hated it.
You would have hated it so much. I'm sorry.
That is not for me personally.
People are gonna get mad. Like people love this book and I'm sorry, I can't do it.
It's not for me.
I would never read it again. Couldn't pay me $1 million.
Should we go to a book that you read and told me to read, and I read this last week?
Yes. Guys, I'm actually really excited about this.
It's called I Who Have Never Known Men by Jacqueline Harpmann. Tell me what you felt reading, or summarize it. Tell me what you felt reading it, and then why you recommended it to me.
Wait, we haven't talked about it yet.
We've been saving it.
Oh, I'm so excited. Okay, so I saw this on BookTok. I got it. That was a good story. Basically, the book is about these 40 women trapped in a bunker. One of them is a kid. No one knows why they're there, where they are, who this child came from, because none of them are her mom. So the child is the only one who doesn't know life outside of the bunker. Like, she's never seen the sky. She's never seen grass. They aren't allowed to touch each other in the bunker. She doesn't know what a hug feels like. It's so sad. And, like, they're not being beat. They're not being punished. They're being fed. But they just, like, won't be let out of this bunker.
They were maybe drugged because a lot of the women don't remember
they
life
have, like,
very
memory
clearly.
issues.
Have you seen my phone, perhaps?
Oh, you were on it.
Oh, it's right here.
Oh, good.
Oh, and that's falling.
Oh, good. Is everything still working? I'm so anxious with these things. Spoiler alert, some crazy alarm goes off right when the guard puts his key in the door to feed them. They all run away. The women get to go out of the bunker. They're in this like place. They're like, is this even Earth? They have no idea where they are. It's like this completely barren land, and they travel for miles and miles, and all they find are bunker after bunker after bunker. And it's just this story of these 40 women surviving off of the like supplies left in the bunkers and just like out in the wilderness, having no idea where they are or where anybody else is, what the alarm was. There's a lot of mysteries, and it's from the perspective of the child, the youngest girl,
and as she grows up. What made you recommend it to me? I was so curious as I was reading.
I bet. It's a weird book. I recommended it to you because I feel like it's a really the theme of like female friendship and love is so beautiful. It made me fucking cry, and I don't know why. I just thought you would like it.
That was my hypothesis, because I was reading it thinking they're not in society, but they're all raised as women and taking care of each other as women. It felt like womanhood was so strong even in the absence of society telling you what a woman is and does. The way they cared for each other and nurtured each other. Also, another thing is in the first half of the book, oh my God, this I actually had to tell you about because I couldn't keep it in.
Yeah.
But in the first half of the book, she is just like trying to make the days go by, and she realizes if she kind of fantasizes about one of the guards outside, one of the young male guards, that it kind of gives her a little jolt of electricity through her body, and that's a crush, you know, but it's not really described. She doesn't have the words.
She doesn't have words, and it's so interesting the way she chooses to say things because she doesn't know things.
Yeah, and she's just like, I lay in bed thinking about, you know, him coming into here and like touching me,
what it would feel like to be held,
and it makes her feel like warm inside.
Can I say something?
Yeah.
When she's having the eruptions, are those orgasms?
I wasn't thinking that. I was thinking it's kind of
really?
like when your heart skips a beat.
Oh, I thought it was an orgasm.
Because I feel like she wasn't touching herself. It was.
I thought she was doing it with her mind. I thought she was super powerful.
Well, see, and that's how we interpreted it differently.
That's true. Yeah. Yeah. You are left to wonder because she doesn't have the words for everything.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, she has these little eruptions, and it was such a cool, just like I'm a fan. It's like this way of writing that has put these feelings into words that I've never seen put into words. Does that make sense?
Even there's a moment where when they finally are free, the first thing they do is make this secluded area where people can go to the bathroom in private. And she's like, is that what makes us human? Like privacy while going to the restroom. And there's all the entire book kind of makes you think like, what is it to be human? What is humanity? What makes us human? It's so interesting. And even this like very existential, like what are we doing here till the day we die? Because throughout the book, women are just dying of natural causes.
Oh my God, it's horrific. It is a sad, there are moments where I was like, oh, like I had to put it down for a sec because there's some like graphic deaths that are just, it's so emotional for some reason for me. Like I was so emotional about it. I don't know why.
Even just the idea of her, the way she starts to tell time by counting her heartbeats. Every little thing is so well done.
Brilliant.
It's
Yeah.
real, yeah.
And then it's like she gets so used to counting her heartbeat. She doesn't even have to really do it anymore. She like becomes their clock, which is so cool also because she was the youngest. So she's like, they're also like watching her age, and that's also the clock of like the years going by.
Yes. Oh, I didn't even think about that.
It's so interesting. Like, I don't know, it weirdly made me, it kind of like The Substance, I felt like so grateful to like have books and like things to do, and I'm like, wow, it really sets you up like it could be worse, life could be worse.
Yeah, and it really goes to show you like you need a purpose.
Yeah, exactly. And people like find a purpose, like we assign meaning to things, like the way she kept going and going and going forever, like it was really sweet. Just like,
can I say something? It made me a little bit depressed.
Oh, absolutely.
Oh, good. Yeah.
It made me depressed. You know what I liked about it is like, it feels so real that I kept having to remind myself, oh my God, this is made up.
The book leaves you with more questions than answers.
Totally.
You really don't learn anything about their world, why this is happening, none of it.
But I think it's so, I love things where I'm like, God, people's brains are so cool. Because like, how the fuck did she come up with all of that?
And it's so timeless.
And it's an old book that was written originally in what, like French? And it's just now gaining popularity, which is so like symbolic of like at the end, she's like, I'm leaving this book and I don't know if anyone will ever read it. And they didn't for a long time. Yeah. Isn't that cool? Oh, I loved it. I loved it. I loved number one, my two favorite parts of the book. Number one, her relationship with Athena is Athena. It's love. Athena is like this like woman who is older. I mean, they're all kind of like the same age other than her, roughly. But Athena really takes this like interest in her, and she's very like judgmental for someone who like doesn't know how to read or write for her whole life. So she's like, these other women are fucking stupid, but she like respects Athena because she knows math and stuff, and she teaches her math. So they have this like really sweet bond. And as time goes on, like Athena, it's just in her last days, they're like, she's like, please, like, can you just hold me? Because they don't like touch. The child doesn't like touch because she's never had it. But like, she like holds Athena, and then later on she's reflecting on everything, and she's like, the women always would tell her these stories of like, you know, we were married, we had kids, we fell in love, we would dance, we would hear music. And at one point she's like, I think I do know what love is. Like that feeling I had for Athena, I think that was love. That's what that's when I was like, you need to read this book.
That's when I lost it. I was also in a plane sobbing.
Yeah, that's what made me fucking cry. Like it was so beautiful. Oh, it's so good. And then my second, and there's like gayness in the book too. Gayness, loved that. Love a little gay moment. My second favorite part is when, another big spoiler, she finds this like weird underground bunker to spend the rest of her days in with like a lifetime supply of food. It's a little unrealistic, but
I guess it would happen if
everything was frozen so she finds like this nice little place to spend her last days. And it's so fun hearing like the first time a woman sings. She's never heard a song before, and she's like, oh my God, that's so cool. In this little bunker she finds for herself, there's a mirror for the first time, and she's like, the women always talked about being beautiful and what it felt like, and she's like, I look in the mirror and I don't know if I'm beautiful, but I smile at myself because like that's me. And that made me cry for some reason, because I was just like, that's such a wholesome way to, like, we take things for granted. I'm staring in the mirror all fucking day, like picking myself apart. Some people didn't have mirrors, and like what a privilege to just be like, that's me.
Yeah,
it's so sweet, isn't it?
So sweet.
Oh
yeah,
I like highly recommend reading that book. I loved it.
It made me think a lot about who I would be without any outside noise.
Yeah.
You know, like, how would I feel about love? How would I feel about myself? About food, about privacy, about community. It just, everything could be so different.
Yeah. And something.
It is also like a kind of a plotless book in a way.
A little. Or at least there's that feeling where you're like, what's going to happen next?
True.
I need that to read a book or I can't.
But I was thinking about, like, how would it ever be a movie? It couldn't, right? Because it's so in her head. It's...
Yeah, like, I'm a Fan could never be a movie. I'm shocked they made Normal People a show. Like,
yeah.
I'm a Fan, and I Who Have Never Known Men are so mental. They could, yeah. So
They're
true.
almost... You're just in this person's head thinking all their thoughts with them.
Yeah, which is so fun.
Yeah.
I love that.
And she's very likable, the main character of this.
She is, in a weird way. Oh, what I was going to say is, like... It reminds me or shows me about myself that I don't have the much will to live. I would never.
Oh, me too. I was thinking I would off myself a lot, especially when she's alone
right away.
Yeah.
No. Oh my God. That's why I'm like, and this girl had so much like fucking ambition. She teaches herself to read by herself off of like the craziest science books, and then learns to write and writes this book. How cool. That's so cool.
I would never ever be able to do that.
And the way the author like found this way to like make it all make sense and get her to a point where she could write the story. I rate this a 5 stars.
I think for me it's a 4 or 4.5.
Yeah, I don't know why I have such a weird like
we
love
have also
of this
been
book.
Talking a lot about like a post-apocalyptic world.
Yeah, it feels kind of timely.
I think for me it was just I was really depressed
it was
reading
too
it.
Depressing. Yeah, it was depressing. I don't know why I was so hooked on this. And I love how short it is, too.
It is. You can do it in a plane ride.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, I love this book. This and 7 Husbands are my favorite of these.
I think me as well.
I'm a fan.
I also do love, I'm a fan of I'm a Fan. It's just a very particular kind of book.
I think if you read it more like a prose, not like you're going in for a story, then that would have changed my reading experience.
Totally. If you read like 5 minutes a day instead of
100 pages last night.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Perfect.
See, guys, don't say I never did anything for the pod. Like, I'll read a book for the pod.
I know you really went
dedicated to you guys.
I know. Okay. Do you guys like this?
Did you care? Like, literally tell us the truth.
All day today, Madeline was like, well, no one cares.
I'm like, no one cares about this. I'm starting to get in my head about this.
I feel like we're not bookfluencers, you know? So this is new for us.
But we are passionate about books. I guess I would love to know the format. Like, I'm big on not understanding spoilers, because it's like, are we telling you about these to influence you to read them, or are we talking as a group of people who have already read them?
Yeah, is it more of a book club or a recommendation system?
Yeah.
We haven't figured that out quite yet.
You can be honest. Remember, like, start with, can I say something, and only be positive and nice.
No, but I actually am really curious to know if you're like, hey, stop with the books, go back to the movies.
Yeah, if you guys have noticed, we're trying to find our, like, little jive. We're loving media, but, like,
I think we will always have our normal episodes where it's just, like, us gabbing
being
about
silly.
Nothing. Yeah, but I would love a couple episodes every now and then where it's like meaty.
Yeah, and it's a vehicle, like my body, like that was a bigger conversation.
Totally. So let us know your thoughts.
Follow us on fucking Instagram and subscribe to our YouTube channel.
I know at the very beginning when we started the pod we were like, we're never gonna ask people to do it, but then turns out people don't do it if you don't ask. So please like and comment and subscribe, and like, we actually
seriously,
read every single comment.
We actually even show each other every comment and go, oh
yeah, so we seriously do.
Like,
what else? Like, follow the Instagram.
Yeah, like DM us like how much you like don't want us to quit. There's this one girl who left this comment that was like, hey guys, my biggest fear is that you're gonna quit, so just please don't quit, okay?
I was like, she gets us.
She sees us. Yeah. Like, we do think about quitting. So like comments like that could really help. Etc.
Okay.
Love you guys.
1, 2, 3. Mwah.